It is Q&A day here on the Lessons of a Lashpreneur show. And today's Q comes from Megan Donnelly, and she asks, how do you build a clientele in a small town where lash artists are everywhere? Thanks for asking your question, Megan. I'm going to address two approaches to marketing your lash business in a small town. One for the saturated market small town artist, and one for the not so saturated small town lash artist. Now, marketing principles are the same no matter you're a big fish in a small pond or a small fish in a big pond, but we're going to cover marketing strategies that maybe are more specific to small town, but that big city lash artists can also use to implement these strategies into their own marketing. It's just we are going to do it with the frame around a small town feel, because small towns actually prioritize a little bit differently than, say, a big city. Now, in full disclosure, I'm in a big city. I do live in a very saturated market, but I do have some ideas for you small town lash artists. So first, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Tara Walsh. I'm a licensed esthetician, master lash artist, and a business coach, consultant, and marketing strategist for lash artists just like you. This is the Lessons of a Lashpreneur, where I take lash business tips, strategies, and tools to help you formulate a business that you love. So we're going to go through start, build, and growing a thriving lash business on your own terms throughout this entire show. So today is episode 21. Welcome. So in San Diego, which is where I'm from, which is in California, very close to the Mexican border, it's about a city of 3 million people. That's a lot of eyes, right? So I wouldn't say that we're a small town. We are fairly large. I think we're like maybe the 10th largest city in the US. Don't quote me on that, but we do have a lot of eyes out there. We also have suburbs in the city that are more of that kind of small town feel. I live in one of those suburbs. Where I've noticed from small towns versus big towns, the difference is the priority of in-person relationships. So this was actually first brought to mind for me when I went to go visit my in-laws for the first time, who live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So Tulsa was very different, almost a culture shock for me. It's in the Midwest of the US, which is very different. So what I say here in California is we don't like to talk to each other, right? Like we'd rather do all of our research online. We'll believe social proof online versus talking to a person a stranger in person. We'll believe the online review more so than in person. Whereas I think in small towns, Yelp, for instance, in Tulsa, when I first visited there many, many years ago, wasn't even really a thing. And for me from San Diego, it's like, how is Yelp not a thing that you guys check? Where do you find out on where to go for restaurants or where's a good hair salon? And my mother-in-law was like, yeah, we just talk to people or we get a referral from friends. So that's kind of the small town mindset that I'm taking in the approach. Now, granted, Tulsa is still a larger city of Oklahoma, but it is still a small town kind of feel. So there's going to be things that you're going to be able to take away, whether you live in a big city or a little city. It's just we're going to focus on in-person relationships and how to build a business when there's not as many eyes out there or more online strategies that maybe you would want to use. So let's get started. The first small town strategy I'm going to give you are your digital strategies, your online strategies. So you want to prioritize focusing on testimonials of your current clients and social proof. Because if you're in a small town, and if it's a really small town, everybody kind of knows everybody, right? Everybody's in each other's businesses. You tend to know people who know people who know people. You're kind of all just aware of who each other are. It's this own little social culture. So if you start to highlight your current clients who other people are going to recognize and know, you start to build that trust, even though they may or may not know who you are to begin with, or what services you offer, or what value that you have as opposed to maybe other lash artists. If you start to highlight both their names, their usernames, if they have social media accounts, and be like, hey, Becky was taking her kids to school today and she sent me the screenshot of how much she loved her lashes and she just woke up and went, rather than my client sent me a text message about how amazing her lashes were. You would use her name. Obviously get permission from Becky first. So highlighting, making your clients the star of the show so that their friends and family and other people in the community who may know who they are start to see them and recognize, oh, Becky goes there. I didn't know Becky went there. I'm going to start going now too. Also, you want to focus on putting your face out there. for you being the face of your business and your brand, so that people can start to relate to you, even though they may not know you in person or they may not know you well, that they are identifying that you are the service provider and the business owner, so they start to make a connection with you as an individual. So by having videos on your website of you, of sharing your video on social media, if social media is something that is widely utilized in your city. Now, I know in really, really small towns, you're kind of sometimes behind the trend. So eyelash extensions may not even be something that is really popular yet, or it may be that people just don't know that it's for the everyday woman as well. It's not just for the Hollywood Kim Kardashian types. It may be just as simple as you creating awareness that eyelash extensions are an awesome thing for any kind of woman. Even the women who don't prioritize having makeup or do a lot of upkeep or self-care, it can be just as simple as saying, hey, eyelash extensions make you feel beautiful 24/7, and that may be all the marketing you may need to do. So if you are putting your face out there on video, social media, all of that, it really can help for a potential customer who may not know you very well or may not know you at all, start to relate to you. Whereas in a bigger city, it's more about the experience and it's more about the escape rather than necessarily building with you as a person one-on-one. You kind of want to have this presence of you're an established professional business rather than creating that one-on-one connection. Not to say that's true across the board, but for larger cities, we try to have more of a professional, established presence online than if you're a smaller town, you really want to build that one-on-one connection. For those in a non-saturated market, again, all you may have to do is create awareness of what eyelash extensions are. And say if you're the only lash artist within like a 20-mile radius, you don't need to worry about competing against other lash artists, right? You're just trying to get people to want your services. And maybe that means that you offer more than just lashes. And so anybody coming in for a brow wax or a facial, you would then upgrade them to start getting their lashes done as well. If you're in a saturated market in a small town, this is where you really have to focus on what makes you different and unique. And that's where having that individual connection with just who you are as a person, showing your life, showing the things that are important to you, being a little more personal online can help build that connection when you're in a saturated market so that somebody chooses you specifically as opposed to your competition. I know in a larger city, I tend to recommend staying away from truly, truly personal things. Just because if there's a lot of eyes on it and it's your personal life, sometimes that can get a little sticky or a little blurred. It just all depends on what types of clients you are used to drawing in. But at least here in larger cities like San Diego, we tend to want to put our best foot forward professionally and keep that boundary of this is professional versus I'm sharing a lot of photos of my kids at their soccer game and having people see that my kids go to school at XYZ school. Whereas in a smaller town, it may make more of a connection if somebody else has kids that go to the same school, or they know that Becky's kids go to a different school. Obviously, safety concerns are a huge priority, but in smaller towns, there's less of that kind of creeper, stalker status as there is in bigger cities. I hope that makes sense. And then in-person strategies. So small town in-person strategies are huge, 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 and where you should be spending a lot of energy. Now, like I said, in San Diego, we don't like to talk to each other. So in-person strategies have their place in a marketing plan. It's just not something that we spend a whole lot of time doing because we do get pretty good results off of more social media, website, online strategies because we can reach a lot more people. Well, if you don't have a whole lot of people to reach to begin with because it's a small town and it's a small population, you can spend a lot more time on those in-person strategies and have that be very effective for getting new clients into your business where social media may not be as widely used. So my recommendation for those of you in small town for in-person strategies is collaborate, right? Get together with other business owners. Likely you don't have a whole lot of corporations in your town where it's these big corporations where you don't know who the owner is of the company or they don't live in the city. You want to actually make connections with other small business owners and see if there's a way to collaborate. A lot of times there's what's called MLMs, right? Multi-level marketing is very popular in smaller towns where there's a lot of relationships. So essential oils, clothing line, Mary Kay, those kinds of things. If you can find a way to collaborate with consultants of MLMs to co-host events where maybe it's in your space that they're coming with their products, so that there's also awareness of your business, and they can also pitch their products, and their clients would come into your space and you could talk about your services. That's a way to collaborate. If you're also cross trading with other local businesses like coffee shops, fabric craft centers, those kinds of things. In a bigger city, I wouldn't necessarily leave my cards at a craft shop because I don't know the owner and I don't want to solicit, right? I don't want to come in and be like, hey, market my business. But in a smaller town, you likely know who that owner is and you can build on a relationship there. So I would prioritize building relationships with other business owners, even if they're not necessarily beauty related, that there's still an opportunity for you guys to collaborate and work together to cross promote. Same thing can be said if you have, if you just want to get out and talk to people. So having a booth at, say, a college, if there's a local community college and it's their welcome week, go have a booth at their welcome week to get in front of college students. Because likely if you're in a small town and it's a local community college, those kids are local and thus their parents still live in the area and they also have friends that would be in the same area. You may not be able to be as picky with your types of clients because there's just not the volume of people. So maybe college students and 50-year-old clients kind of all hang out in the same place. I don't know, it depends on how small it is. Even fun runs, like if there's a local 5K for Thanksgiving, maybe you have a booth there to just talk about your services and hand out energy bars after the fun run. Just a way for you to have a positive brand reputation to get your name out there. Because again, if you're in a small town, it may be as simple as creating awareness that your business exists, and then the demand comes from that. I would also, if you're in a small town, the in-person strategy, I would place a heavier reward on in-person referrals. So that means that if you get in with a new client, she may rave about you to her 5 closest friends, and that's all you need to build out a clientele. Because each one of those 5 friends will then talk to their other 5 friends, and that's kind of how you can build out. That definitely happens in bigger cities, but it can be a longer process because we're not seeing each other as much, because there's so much chaos and so much busyness. We spend a lot of time in traffic, at least here in San Diego, that we don't have time for personal relationships as much as when there's less to do in a small town, that people spend more time together. So here in San Diego, the reason why we can't keep a sports team here is because there's so much to do, right? We have the beaches, we're close to the desert and the mountain, and we have SeaWorld, and we have our world famous zoo, and we have another version of that called the Wild Animal Park, and we're close to LA. Like, there's a lot of things for people to do in San Diego that don't involve just hanging out and socializing. Our socializing is usually at an event or doing something, or as we're coming and going from a different place. So small town, you tend to have more events that are people and relationship centric. So if you can kind of encourage your clientele, even reward them with either an extra discount or maybe a percentage-based referral instead of just a flat rate. So instead of $10 off for every new full set you send, maybe it's 25%. So if they're sending multiple people in a month, they can work towards a free fill, which you're obviously getting a reward for because you have then 3 or 4 new clients that have paid the full set price. So there's strategies for in-person to reward for more conversations around your services and have your clients do that work for you, and you reward them with either a discount or an upgraded service or whatever. Now, if you're in a saturated market in a small town, one in-person strategy that I do recommend, you have to, and this is for online too, you have to have a niche. If there are not a whole lot of eyes out there, if there's a lot of competition, and I use the word competition loosely because what I teach inside my Lashpreneur Society, inside of the marketing build module, is that there's really no exact competition. While yes, you offer eyelash extensions and they offer eyelash extensions, it's actually not the same thing. Just like 7-Eleven coffee is, yes, in fact, coffee, but it's not the same thing as Starbucks. 2 totally different experiences, qualities, products, and price points, right? So there's no direct competition. It's not always apples to apples. So you have to find what makes your business an orange compared to all the other apples out there. So if you really start to evaluate what it is that makes you different, whether it's experience, location, parking, find the pain points of why somebody wouldn't want to be a customer of your competition, and find how you fill a different need or a different gap or solve a different problem than them. That may mean that they do 8, 10, 12 on every single client cookie cutter lashes. And maybe you go 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 10, 11, and you do more of a customized look. It can be something, it's just finding the area of opportunity. So I talk a lot about how to find your niche and what makes you unique inside of the Lashpreneur Society, inside of our build training module, but finding a niche, even offering what feels like a big city experience with your business in a small town can be all that you need to be different. A lot of people in smaller towns, depending on the regulations in your city or country, you can work from home. But if everybody else is working from home, how do you differentiate yourself, right? How do you not make it feel like laundry sitting on the back counter? I always recommend, if you're going to work at home, be the Airbnb of home. Make it feel like you're in a salon. Make it feel like it's a hotel or a spa experience. You can absolutely do that whether you're in a big city or a small city and you're working out of your home, or you're working out of the corner of a salon where maybe the salon isn't all that nice, but your experience inside your room can be really top-notch and high level. So another couple of in-person strategies if you're in a saturated market, or if you're not in a saturated market, but the question specifically from Megan was a saturated market, is maybe you're the go-to lash artist for the PTA members. Maybe you work with something, the committee that's the school committee, and you work out with the women on there that you're going to offer a special discount and be their go-to people, or go-to lash artist, and you advertise that on your website and on your collateral, your marketing materials, your social media, that you're this school's PTA's lash artist. It can be that specific and that niche down that you're that go-to person, so that other moms of the school see that, oh, she works with Kathy on the PTA, or, you know, Jody on the PTA is her client. It just gives a point of connection for people to get that social proof and that validation that somebody else that they know actually thinks that you're pretty awesome too. You could offer special discounts to your church congregation, and just have special discounts for ladies of the church, or I don't want to get too stereotypical of what I think a small town is, but, you know, if there's like a knitting group or a craft group or a quilting club, go to them, offer your services, give them some sort of reward, whether it's an upgrade for free or you're doing a discount for them, whatever gets you in the door and gets them utilizing your services, so that you become that go-to person for that small group of people. Because once you're the go-to person for a small group, that small group will then go out and talk to other people on your behalf. And again, for MLM consultants, because they're pretty sometimes aggressive in reaching out and doing that work to reach out and have a network of women in your community, it may be very wise of you to establish a relationship with them and a partnership with them where they are also in front of your target audience, and there's a way to kind of collaborate between the two of you. So to wrap up, in summary, whether you're in a small town with a ton of other lash artists or the only lash artist for like 20 miles, it's up to you to find the areas of opportunity to fill a gap in the marketplace. Whether your marketplace is big or little, there is a void that you fill and a problem that you solve. And that's marketing in general. That's not specific to small town or big town. But in-person strategies tend to work better in small towns. And working on that one-on-one relationship that you're going to have with a clientele and letting them get to know you personally is going to be more effective in a small town environment. So if you'd like to learn more about how to market your lash business or build a clientele in any kind of setting, I highly recommend that you consider joining the group coaching program. Now, we only open registration a couple times a year for new members. So right now we do have a wait list building. So if you want to be the first to know when we do open up registration for our next round of open registration, please go to thelashpreneur.com/society and join me next week as we continue to dive down how to start, build, and grow a thriving lash business on your own terms. Thanks for joining me today, guys. Have a good one.